Again, I'm Rahul Maheshwari, founder and CEO of Reveation Labs. My passion lies in helping establish B2B enterprises navigate the complexity of digital transformation that includes the e-commerce solutions that drive growth and create a seamless user experience. Having seen the firsthand how the technology can unlock the incredible potential, I'm excited to host this crucial conversation today and explore the strategies that are defining the future of B2B. Finally, we have a Jason Greenwood. Jason is the founder of Greenwood Consulting, and I'll have him introduce himself. Jason, here.
Thanks so much, Rahul and Hayward, for being along for this webinar today. It's great to be here with you and great to be here with the audience. My name is Jason Greenwood, been working in the e-commerce space for over 25 years, have run and built agencies, have worked inside brands, and for the last 5 years, I've run my own independent B2B e-commerce consultancy where we work with manufacturers and distributors to basically help them through the entire process of digital transformation. And I also work very closely with the B2B EA, the B2B e-commerce association. And I was lucky enough to MC their B2B e-commerce world event last week in Melbourne, Australia for the APAC region. So I'm just fresh back from that entire event. And so I definitely am right at the forefront of hearing what is happening in the industry from practitioners in the space. So I'm looking forward to sharing that information with you today.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Before we do deep dive into the webinar topic, let's just quickly talk about Shopify, right? I mean, when many people hear the name Shopify, they think it's a powerhouse that transforms B2C e-commerce, right? Making it possible for all the brands and of all sizes, right? Mom and pop shop to the large enterprises, they can sell directly to consumer in a very short amount of time. But what many leaders are not discovering is that Shopify has brought the same philosophy of simplicity, power, and scalability to far more complex world of B2B. And that's what we're going to be talking about as we talk about how the B2B landscape is shifting and changing. And I'll just have a Hayward if he can give a quick introduction about B2B on Shopify.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, Rahul, if you haven't looked at Shopify in the B2B lens in the last few years, you may have blinked and missed the launch of a number of major releases around B2B, and this is really just a very short highlight of some of those key pieces. So B2B is built into Shopify from the ground up, and all the native primitives are there to support B2B on Shopify. Everything from supporting company profiles and the locations that their buyers are purchasing from, supporting custom price lists for customized product and pricing availability. Payment terms are supported, as well as vaulting credit cards so that those B2B buyers have a card on file. And of course, importantly, from the Shopify perspective, as an API first SaaS platform, there are APIs to interact with all these objects, as well as making it easy for buyers to manage past orders and things like that. So a lot of capabilities when it comes to native B2B features on Shopify.
Thank you, Howard, for walking us through the exciting B2B features on Shopify. Now, as we deep dive into the pain points, right, let's set the stage. The B2B buying landscape has fundamentally shifted, and as Jason would agree with me, a massive 80% of the B2B sales interactions are now happening on digital channels as per the Gartner. Buyers are behaving more like consumers. They are self-educating using over 10 different channels. Research, frankly, they expect a seamless, representative-free experience, just like they are doing their personal shopping. This isn't a future trend. It's really reality today. This shift is forcing leaders to invest in a digital-first approach to stay relevant in capture growth. And now, if your business is not ready, this is the time. The world has changed. You have to change with your buyers. We have heard a lot of time that Gen Z is coming to the corporate world, and they are used to the TikToks. They want simplicity, seamless experience. So you have to be ready for that. And that's what we're going to be discussing more into some of the pain points that B2B organizations face when they want to either jump onto the B2B online selling, or they want to modernize their infrastructure. Now, let's get into our first major pain point: the struggle to deliver a modern customer experience. In a B2C world, everything is a fast online experience. B2B buyers are the same people. Now, what a lot of companies fail to comprehend this in the B2B world, managing complex pricing contracts, which is a core to the B2B operations. We are talking about customer-specific price list, volume-based discounts, negotiated terms, things that a typical B2C platform just can't handle out of the box. So I'm going to ask my colleague Jason that from his perspective, where do legacy B2B platforms most often fail when it comes to the user experience and core B2B features?
Yeah, maybe Rahul, if you don't mind going back just one slide, there's 3 points I'd like to bring up just in relation to B2B selling trends in 2025 that I think are worth pointing out here. First of all, on the top left-hand side there, you see 80% of B2B sales on digital are taking place on digital channels today, as per Gartner. Now, what is also often not talked about is that includes all B2B digital channels. Now, in B2B, we don't just have self-service e-commerce. We have 2 other major digital channels that are exceptionally common in the B2B world, that being EDI and punch-out or e-procurement integration. And so that's actually a misleading stat, because depending on the vertical and depending on the market, only about 40 to 60% of B2B manufacturers and distributors today offer self-service e-commerce at all, meaning a self-service e-commerce portal experience. So oftentimes B2Bs will consider their EDI and their punch-out channels, hey, we can wash our hands of the digital experience requirements because we offer that. We offer B2B buying through these automated procurement systems. The problem is that 71% of B2B buyers today, as per Forrester, as at the end of 2024, are now millennials and Gen Z. So they expect to be able to self-serve themselves even beyond the transaction. So they still want to have a portal where they can log in and place quote requests. They still want to have a portal where they can log in and they can check inventory. They still want to have a portal where they can log in and check pricing, where they can check ranges that are available to them, check MOQs and buying increments, and lodge RMA requests and track orders from the time it leaves the supplier's warehouse to the time it's receipted into their warehouse, so they can have their receipting teams ready to go to receive those orders. So I think this data is somewhat misleading, because many, up to 40 to 60% of manufacturers and distributors today still do not offer a self-service portalized experience beyond the transaction. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we have a situation now where automated buying is starting to make its way into the e-procurement space. So agentic procurement is starting to be delivered via the major e-procurement vendors. And therefore, if we don't have a portalized experience that is agentically enabled, we're going to have a real problem serving these agentic buyers in the future. So this is something we need to get the commerce foundations correct in our businesses today to serve the modern generation of buyers today, but also the agentic buyers of tomorrow. And I think that's a really important thing to point out. Finally, we also need to be enabling our own sales teams. E-commerce is not about replacing sales teams. Sales teams are always going to be there in the B2B world. However, what we do see is that somewhere between 20 and 60% of a sales rep's time today, for businesses that track sales rep time by activity, is spent on pure admin functions, no value add to the business and no value add to the customer. So they go out to the field, they take an order from a customer, they come back to the office, they key it into an ERP system that's not designed for user-friendly commerce. So there's a lot of things changing in the industry right now, not only around expectations, but around internal enablement to allow teams to serve customers faster and more efficiently with that digital services layer beyond the transaction. And I think that's worth pointing out.
Thank you, Jason, for insight. And I think we have to get back to the Gartner and for us to fix the statistics. It seems like we cannot rely on them anymore. But that's why we have you here. Now let's hear what Hayward has to say about how the Shopify is tackling some of these challenges, to address this B2B buyer expectations and core features that are essential to their business operations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to continue on what some of the talking points we looked at earlier in terms of those foundational pieces, simply having the self-serve nature, which I'll dive into in a second and a bit more, but the flexibility to have things like price rules and customer-specific catalogs and company profiles on Shopify. Takes our very self-serve oriented D2C experience and applies that in a B2B context. So if we move on to the next slide, this next slide has a lot of content on self-serve purchasing. And I think that speaks to what Jason was saying in terms of providing that portalized experience for these younger buyers who are used to that in a D2C environment and are looking to have that replicated when they're buying for B2B. Shopify provides that capability by applying a lot of those D2C principles to our B2B offering, both in terms of easy reordering, making it a simplified process in checkout, having that customer account section where you can manage things, where merchants can plug in additional capabilities, as well as simply being able to provide a easy purchasing process on the website for things like quick order lists and the ability to go through that more traditional B2C buying experience, but in a D2C environment is a huge win and something a lot of these younger buyers are looking for. If we go on to the next piece, taking that a step further, there's also a lot of importance in making sure that buying experience is also customizable. So making sure that you're tailoring that storefront to the buyer in question so that they're seeing the correct products that are available to them as a buyer. So, maybe there's a certain subset of the overall store's products that are only available to buyers on a specific company, the contextual pricing that relates to those buyers. So, maybe they've negotiated specific rates, making sure that those are all available again through this self-serve experience. And then applying things like volume pricing as well throughout all of this. So, taking these B2B table stakes and applying them to this self-serve experience is really where Shopify has been looking at B2B. And then, you extend things to the actual design of the storefront and being able to be buyer aware and add in additional contextualization to that browsing experience as needed. Plus all of the existing sort of infrastructure and scale pieces, which we'll touch on in a further section.
Thank you, Howard. I just have been informed that the viewers are not able to see our slides. So I'm just going to quickly switch the presentation mode so they can see our slides quickly. All right. I think this should be good now. All right. Excellent. Let's move to our next challenge, which is basically friction in the checkout and payment process. B2B isn't just about credit cards. It's about purchase orders, net terms, approval workflows, shipping requirements. It's just a ton of things that needs to go at the time of checkout, So, Jason, I have to ask you, what are the biggest pain points of friction you see companies struggle with them trying to digitize their B2B payment and ordering process?
Yeah, look, I think automating, trade credit and making sure, because still to this day, the vast majority, something like on the order of 80+% of B2B payments are still on account. So the reality is, having a tokenized credit card, well, that's all fine and good, but the vast majority of businesses aren't buying on a credit card. They're buying on account, they're buying on invoice, they've got 30-day, 60-day, 90-day payment terms. So making sure that is exposed at checkout, making sure that they can see what the status of their credit account is, how much credit balance do they have left available, being able to actually make payments from checkout against that statement balance. There's lots of areas where being able to extend trade credit from like Allianz and other trade credit providers at the point of checkout, being able to introduce B2B specific buy now, pay later terms to the customer in checkout, being able to offer all these B2B specific payment methods are really, really important in the B2B world. And then being able to extend, for example, messaging into the checkout when a client or a customer is on credit stop for whatever reason because they've hit their credit ceiling, and so messaging that they'll need to contact their account manager or whatever to deal with that and address that and re-release their credit account, and then having fallback payment methods and having fallback rules so that we don't block the purchase. We don't want to say, well, look, you're past your credit limit, so now you simply can't create this purchase until you resolve that. Well, look, let's put a fallback method in place to say, well, look, if you want to pay with your business credit card right here, right now, even though you've exceeded your credit limit or you're on credit stop with us, then you could do that. Or here we have a third-party trade credit available for you to effectively apply for in real time at checkout. So I think providing optionality in terms of payment methods and fallback payment methods, and then being able to segment payment methods, right? And be able to segment customers by payment method and say, well, look, for our high risk customers or maybe our brand new customers, for the first 3 months of doing business with us, we only want them to be able to pay via business credit card. Then once they have a trading track record with us, we know what kind of volumes they're going to be doing. We know what kind of value of trade credit we need to apply to their account. We've been able to do some background credit checking in the meantime, and now we can give them a trade credit balance of 20 grand a month or 50 grand a month or 100 grand a month, which will cover their needs that they've established over the first quarter of trading with us. So these types of considerations are where B2B starts to get really complex. And also when we think about the ordering workflows start to get super complex when you have back orders, split shipments. How do we want to handle that? Do we want to give the customer the option of waiting until all items come back into stock before we ship, or do we want to give them the option of defining, okay, ship what you have in stock, then ship what's back ordered as soon as you have it back into stock? Giving them a default warehouse that is assigned to them, that is closest to them, and then giving backup warehouse locations or backup inventory locations for them to ship from. And then what does that do to the shipping cost as a result? And oftentimes in the B2B world, the final thing we see is shipping on the customer's carrier account. So them being able to put in their carrier account number, being able to select the carrier at checkout, so that instead of them having to pay the supplier for shipping, like for an LTL shipment or something like that, it goes directly on their carrier account, and then you just arrange collection by their preferred carrier. So there's many different things to think about that are quite unique in the B2B world. But I think ultimately what we're talking about here is flexibility, optionality, and really making sure that we're meeting all of those unique business use cases that we have in the B2B world that are just so common.
Jason, those are all great points. I mean, without that, you just cannot have the B2B ordering or online selling. And that shows the level of complexity that the platform, whether you have any platform that you pick or choose, it has to be able to support the level of complexity, ability to customize it, ability to extend to suit your unique requirements and needs. So Hayward, how does Shopify Plus streamline this? Can you talk about the capabilities around all the different scenarios that Jason just talked? Can you give us some more insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what it really comes back to is from a underlying sort of technology perspective, Shopify has pulled together a number of pieces, and the three highlighted on this slide, I think, really are what build up a lot of those capabilities. So Shopify's functions are a capability to build additional backend logic within the Shopify checkout. And this powers a lot of the customizable business logic related to things like Jason was talking about in terms of, additional validation at checkout, or checking that a buyer has approval to do an action, or things like that. There's a lot of capabilities available through Shopify Function, both in terms of checkout validation, hiding payment methods, hiding shipping methods depending on the buyer. All of that conditional logic is powerful through our Shopify Functions capability. Additionally, our checkout UI extensions capability pairs really well with that, in that it provides the front-end interface for buyers to interact with. So whether it be for a banner along the top to say, hey, you've reached your credit limit, you should contact your account manager, or to let them know about some specific state of the checkout. There's also the ability to add additional, say, form fields, checkboxes, collect additional information, add in that customizable UI piece into the checkout where needed. And this is for them to say, select, maybe they do want to use their carrier account this time, or maybe they want to change it and use something else next time. There's a lot of flexibility there in terms of either collecting additional information in checkout, or allowing them to interact and make choices as part of that checkout. All of that comes together with our custom data platform. So we have concepts called meta fields and meta objects. These allow you to store structured data in Shopify, either related to a company, a buyer, products. There's a wide range of capabilities that this provides merchants in terms of what they can build out. But this can help solve for things like adding in additional information that these functions and UI extensions have an awareness of, and are used to inform these conditional decisions and what's surfaced in the checkout for the buyer. So together, these three pieces really come together and provide the ability for merchants to build these very bespoke checkouts, where that experience is tailored specifically to each buyer within potentially each company going through their checkout. And I guess, that sort of builds on top of what is a wide range of built-in features. So that's to say that, you can extend the checkout as needed, where there are specific use cases, or, industry-specific ways that a merchant might need to approach how to solve for something. But there's also a wide range of built-in capabilities within our checkout, whether it be for collecting and calculating taxes, or support for multiple currencies. There's a whole range of capabilities here that exist within our Shopify checkout. And a lot of these come from our D2C space. So for anyone familiar with the D2C Shopify checkout experience, the B2B experience inherits almost all of those capabilities there in terms of the built-in power. And one of those being, responsive checkout across mobile and desktop, as it's built from the ground up to support mobile as well as desktop. These younger buyers will be able to place those B2B orders, whether they're on their phone or on their work computer at their desk.
Great. I'm glad to hear that Shopify is tackling some of this unique requirements of B2B from either out of the box challenge options, or ability to customize and extend the platform to support your unique requirements. It's all great insight. Now that brings us to a pain point that it feels more internally, the reliance on a manual process, right? This is all about swivel chair work that happens behind the scenes, right? Tagging customers, reviewing orders, notifying Salesforce, notifying your fulfillment team, and so on. It goes on, right? It just so many things happens once the order comes in. Jason, in your experience, what's the hidden cost of manual repetitive tasks for a B2B organization?
Yeah, I mean, look, the key here is that from a high level, in all B2B businesses, well, like 99% of them, the ERP is the beating heart of the business. The ERP combined with the CRM are the beating hearts of the business. And so the reality is that the source of truth around customers, not only at an organizational level, but also the buyers within those organizations, they're going to be buying through your portalized experience, all the way to credit levels, pricing tiers, discount levels, account management processes, quote request management processes. All that is typically managed through a combination of an ERP and a CRM, and all of that information should ideally be integrated with and surfaced through the portal experience. So it should be the single source of truth. Now, obviously, a lot of B2Bs, in addition to the ERP and CRM, will have a PIM system, a product information management system, where they hold and house all of the detailed product information, both structured and unstructured product data, from images to descriptions to PDFs to zip files to videos to, structured attributes around the product that we need to display on the front end of the website. So, at the end of the day, it's almost impossible to create a well-oiled machine in terms of a portal experience if all three of those those primary back office systems of B2Bs are not integrated with the commerce system. Now, there's certain things, of course, that you can set up in something like a Shopify. You can set up, for example, you could set up Shopify Flow, where if you want to allow new B2B customers to create an account from scratch inside the commerce system as a first port of call, you could automatically tag them as a new customer. You could automatically assign a default trade price list to them, which is probably your most expensive price list with the least preferential pricing possible, just to allow them to transact in the moment, even before they've actually got an account in the ERP or the CRM, and then you would obviously have to create that through integration when the order flows down into ERP. So there's ways to two-way integrate data to and from the commerce system to make and create ultimately a super efficient customer experience that doesn't create barriers for them transacting with you. And the final thing I would speak to is the concept of gated experiences. So far too many B2Bs still gate their entire experience, meaning unless you authenticate, you can't see what products they carry, you can't see pricing, you can't see inventory, you can't see anything. And so my suggestion is, even if you don't want to show pricing and inventory, at least ungate your catalog, because that is the data. That is the information. It's your product catalog information that is ultimately going to get indexed by Google, by the ChatGPTs of the world, by the answer engines of the world. And if you gate your experience to where Google and the LLMs cannot index your website, then for all intents and purposes, you do not exist online. And it's going to be very, very difficult for when this new generation of B2B buyers, they're not waiting for sales reps to come knock on their door. They are doing their new supplier search. They're starting their search online for new suppliers, and they are initiating that search and select process for new suppliers for the products that they want to sell. And so they're not waiting for the old school way of phone call from a sales rep or knocking on a door from the sales rep or lunches on a Friday with a sales rep or a ball game on a Saturday with a sales rep. That's not what they're waiting for. They want to self-service that. And so my final piece of advice would be ungate your damn experience. Even if you require login and authentication to see pricing and see inventory, at least ungate your catalog so customers can actually see the products that you sell.
Once again, great points, right? Jason, you pack a lot of things, in your response, and let's talk one by one, right? This is where the automation becomes critical, where integration becomes critical. We're gonna talk about integration in the next few slides, but let's just focus on automation, and how the Shopify flow can automate this unique B2B operational workflows without needing a developer. And if Hayward can walk us through the Shopify flow.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jason made some very salient points about, there needing to be real cohesion between, the e-commerce system as well as all of the back-end tools that a merchant is making use of. Shopify Flow and a number of the other built-in tools are, simply one of a number of pieces that are at play here where, you're hopefully slowly chipping away at some of these manual processes that a merchant might have, in their existing workflows. So Shopify Flow is one of those where there's a drag and drop editor available where you can interact. There's actions that can be taken as the result of events that trigger these flows to take place. So more of an if this then that kind of tool. But a lot of things, especially that live within the Shopify ecosystem on the merchant side, can be automated here. Maybe it's transforming data so that it's in the right format for the ERP. As Jason mentioned, maybe tagging newly signed up customers so that the ERP has an awareness that a price list needs to be applied. Or you can perform actions on things that happen once an order gets placed before the ERP picks it up, stuff like that. Jason also touched on company account requests, and Shopify has the ability to support the ability for B2B buyer to sign up organically, and you can then facilitate those initial transactions before someone goes in and reviews their account and assigns them, say, preferential pricing and things like that. So yeah, I think those are some of the foundational pieces here, and as Rahul mentioned, we'll touch on integrations in a second.
I think before you leave this slide, I think it's worth pointing out that Shopify Flow isn't just necessarily for functions inside Flow. There are a lot of apps that leverage Flow. There's within them to share data between apps that are plugged into Shopify. And so Flow is a pretty powerful tool, not just for all the default native out-of-the-box functionality with Shopify, but for interactions between apps sharing data with Shopify and vice versa and with each other. So I think being able to bring Flow into a holistic view of everything you're trying to achieve, whether it be leveraging native out-of-the-box Shopify functionality, customized functionality on top of Shopify that, say, for example, your SI partner like Reveation might develop for you, and those third-party app ecosystem, they can all tap into Flow functionality to create a really tailored experience that you're trying to create for your customers. Because I have yet to see a B2B business that does their sales process, for example, exactly like another B2B business. They're all totally unique in the way that they onboard customers, the way that they set credit limits, the way that they apply credit terms, and it might even be different by customer. One customer cohort might get 30-day terms, one customer cohort might get 60-day terms, and one customer cohort might get 90-day terms. And there's many, many more variations on this theme, where I think that where you need to customize the entire journey from the time a B2B buyer hits your site for the very first time all the way to a buyer that's transacted with you hundreds of times before. If you want to create those differentiated experiences, you can do that with Flow.
Excellent, right? I mean, it's good to know that Shopify has its built-in capabilities where it let you customize not just your, the end user experience, but also make your internal team happy with, ability to automate all this manual processes. That brings us to our next point, on which Jason briefly touched upon in his previous response: siloed system and disconnected data, right? Any decent-sized organization, you have ERP, CRM, PIM, right? They are your core of how you operate your business, right? Now, when these systems are siloed, nothing works efficiently. Why? So it's very important that any e-commerce platform that you choose should have the ability to connect with your all those internal systems, and data integrity is everything, right? And that's where we have worked on projects where most of the work goes into the integrations between the siloed systems, as a system integrator, and and a lot of time the leaders underestimate the amount of efforts and the challenges they face when it comes to integrating other systems. So, Jason, can you give us your take on the importance of seamless integrations between your siloed systems?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have yet to encounter, in my entire career, I've yet to encounter a B2B project that did not require extensive system integration. At an absolute bare minimum, ERP to commerce system integration is absolutely like the foundational minimum. But the vast majority of B2B projects that I'm associated with and I've been involved with over the years have 3 to 10 systems that are integrated, whether that be a CDP, whether that be a PIM, whether that be a separate point of sale system for your dealer locations or your branch locations and your branch estate, whether that be, we have CPQ systems, very, very complex, configure price quote systems that are very common in the B2B world. So extending that into the customer facing e-commerce experience is vital for many B2B businesses because they have such complex rules, especially if they're selling a combination of physical products, digital products, and services like field services, warranty services, installation services. B2B is a really complex world. Like maybe wholesale, I look at manufacturing, distribution, and wholesale as quite 3 distinct types of B2B e-commerce. And maybe if you're a D2C brand today and you're just going to sell wholesale quantities of that into the market, maybe your back office system is not going to be that complex. You're just selling more of those items at different price points. If you're selling coffee mugs or t-shirts and you're just selling 1 million of them at wholesale pricing to customers, well, then maybe you don't need a CPQ platform, and maybe you don't need, complex CRM platform. But when you have very complex, true B2B2B businesses, they have significant back office system investments. And in order for them to get the most value out of the commerce system piece, they really need to be integrated with those back office systems. Now, this leads me to a point about headless commerce. Now, I have never been a massive fan or a big proponent of headless commerce for B2Bs. At least from a storefront perspective, because typically we do not need these hyper custom front end experiences like we expect in the B2C and D2C world. But where headless is starting to become a major consideration in the B2B world is all of the channels that have historically been like pure communication channels, like email, WhatsApp, Slack, Teams, where a customer will communicate with an account manager on the supplier side. Now these are slowly being turned into headless commerce channels, which are plugged into the commerce system as if the customer had logged into the portal to place an order or place an inventory request or things like that. So there are middleware tools that can sit on top of a platform like Shopify. There's Motivate, and there's a number of others that effectively turn those communication channels into transactional and informational channels that are automated, that don't require any human intervention at all to provide that information from the catalog to the customer and ingest orders like with a PDF of a PO or a CSV of a PO attached. That would maybe normally be emailed to an account manager, and then the account manager would manually strip that out of the email, manually enter that into the commerce system or the ERP. Well, now there's specific bespoke built systems for B2B that can inject that directly into the commerce system as if the customer did it themselves. And this is bringing extreme efficiency to the business and the customer experience. But if your systems are siloed and you do not have automation between your commerce system and your back office systems, none of this data is available to the customer or to you as the business. And I think that's the most important takeaway for me here.
Data integrity is everything, right? If your data is sitting somewhere not being used, you can't bring the business efficiency or increase your sale. And that's why a lot of companies have this legacy systems. They are often rigid point-to-point integrations that are brittle and expensive, right? There are plenty of organizations who have already modernized their IT infrastructure, or they are leveraging the platforms that are API first. And that's where the Shopify also, they have the API first approach that offers a more flexible and robust ways to connect with the essential backend systems. Now, Hayward, can you walk us through the capabilities of the Shopify when it comes to integrating with the the third-party systems like ERP, CRM, PIM?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as Jason mentioned, it's absolutely vital that these systems are connected up. Otherwise, you're really just running 2 distinct setups, and someone's probably having to do some sort of CSV import export madness, which really doesn't solve for that manual workflow challenge that we were talking about earlier. So to that point, Shopify spent a lot of time working with a lot of the large ERP and CRM and PIM and OMS providers and all the other 3-letter acronym tools that you can shake a stick at. to help advocate and get them to build first-party integrations. And there are a lot of first-party integrations that exist now with a lot of these major, especially ERP providers, where the ERP platform themselves has a native first-party integration. But we also recognize that there are a lot of use cases that fall outside of what those integrations may support, and so there's a huge ecosystem of additional both third-party integrations with a lot of these platforms, but also connections to iPaaS systems where there may be data transformation or additional logic going in between the various systems. So there's no one size fits all, but there's a lot of different optionality in terms of ways to connect up these systems, and that extends to apps as well. This doesn't just limit you to apps that apply to the storefront, where there are a plethora of apps on the storefront that can be used to customize that buying experience. But as Jason said, connecting up things like Flow to maybe an email tool, or on the D2C side, loyalty solutions fit in here. But there's a wide range of non-ERP related apps and integrations and external systems that are worth having connected up to the e-commerce platform, whether for visibility or being able to use that information to make certain decisions. A lot of those have built out integrations with Shopify, and so can be plugged in the back end, either to surface information or be used as part of some wider decision-making process. And I guess the final point in this section is our Marketplace Connect app is able to connect with a number of marketplaces for merchants selling to those marketplaces. This is obviously traditionally more of a D2C play, but for businesses that are looking to leverage their e-commerce experience for not only B2B, but also the D2C and sale into wider range of channels, this can also be a helpful tool.
I would also just say, if we can just go back, I would say that Amazon Business is a massive channel for many B2Bs out there. So whether you're selling through Vendor Central on a first-party basis or Seller Central on a third-party basis, through via Amazon Business, I've worked with distributors where 25% of their business was done through Amazon Business and Vendor Central. So, I don't want to overlook that. B2B's less so with, these other sort of D2C or B2C focused marketplaces, but Amazon Business in particular. And then there's other third-party marketplaces that, maybe don't have an out-of-the-box connection with Shopify, but there's plenty of omni-channel listing tools that have integrations with B2B specific marketplaces like Zorro and Fair. And there's a lot of other B2B specific marketplaces that, the logos aren't shown here, but, whether it be an out-of-the-box integration with Shopify, or whether that be with a middleware tool that already has a connection to the marketplace of choice, the third-party B2B marketplace of choice, and has an out-of-the-box integration with Shopify, making that connection so much easier to deliver for the business. Definitely, DC360 put out a piece of research, I think it was mid last year in 2024, where they said that by the end of 2024, they estimated that there would be over 1,000 dedicated vertical specific B2B marketplaces globally by the end of 2024. That's a staggering number of marketplaces that are dedicated to the wholesale industry. So there's Jor, there's a million of them out there. And so I think any B2B that's sleeping on the marketplace opportunity is missing a massive opportunity to get their products in front of more B2B buyers.
Great insights, guys. I think that's where it shows the platform that you choose for your online B2B selling. It has to be able to support all this kind of needs, not just now, but as the new marketplaces come in the market, you need to be able to be integrated with them. How quickly can you integrate? How quickly can you launch? Right? You want to spend too much custom time in integrating each of this platform, and that's where the inbuilt capabilities of the Shopify makes it easy. And I'm pretty sure Shopify, if there's a new major marketplace, they will be the first one to integrate with them. So, all right, that brings us, the fifth point, which is kind of like, tied to the point that we just talked about, that if you are using third-party systems for ERP, CRM, PIM, but let's be honest, there are plenty of companies they have in-house systems built in over the years. They're just at this point very difficult to uh, change. They are very rigid in terms of the limitations. They are very monolithic platforms. These are often on-premise systems that are difficult to upgrade, expensive to maintain, simply can't adapt to the modern business needs. So, Jason, what are the telltale signs that a company has outgrown its legacy platform and is being held back by its technology?
I mean, for me, it all comes down to adoption, right? At the end of the day, you can build a Ferrari, but if your customers don't adopt, the solution because you haven't done a good enough job bringing them on the digital transformation journey with you, they simply like to talk to Bob or Jane, their account managers, or the front end experience is so crappy that they go to use it once and they feel like they've been burned by the experience and how difficult it is to use, so they never go back and try it again. So a lot of businesses, they've got either bespoke built applications, or they've got applications that are directly laid on top of their ERP system as a custom app layer on top of their ERP. And oftentimes, these applications, they're not designed to be not only internally staff friendly, but they're not really designed to be very customer friendly either. And so you've got kind of the worst of all worlds, where you've got a situation where the staff don't like to use it, so therefore they don't like to recommend it to the customer. Then the customers that do go to use those solutions, they find that it's a crappy experience, so they stop using it. And then you say, well, oh look, we're only doing. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, is what I'm saying. So if you put in a crappy solution, only 1% of your customers adopt it, then it's easy for the board or the leadership or the CXOs to say, well, look, we only do 1% of business through our e-commerce platform. Why would we make any further digital investments when such a small fraction of our business comes through the e-commerce platform? When if they actually looked at it and they actually used their own platform and they actually experienced it for themselves, or if they went and talked to customers and did customer interviews to ask them why they're not using the platform, they would get the raw and real answer, which is that this platform is so crappy. It's, we implemented it. I talked to merchants that, oh, we implemented this B2B platform 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I'm going, wow, okay, cool. No wonder your customers don't use this experience. And so, and oftentimes it also, it's down to incentives. It's not just how bad or good the platform is, but it's also, are we incentivizing sales teams to help customers adopt these solutions, or are we picking their pocket and saying, well, orders that come through digital channels, we're not going to give you commission on. So there's also incentives for the customer. We want to incentivize the customer to use our digital platforms because it makes us more efficient and it makes them more efficient at their jobs. So I think there's a lot wrapped up in this legacy platform discussion, and it's not just, oh, are you running something from a decade ago and it's on-prem, or it's not integrated with ERP or whatever. I think it comes down to these legacy platforms oftentimes create a self-fulfilling prophecy where internal users and external customers do not want to use them. And so therefore, it's really hard to then go back and make a business case for why you should make further investments in digital. When, if you look at your key competitors in the marketplace that are winning, it's highly, highly likely that they have an advanced self-service e-commerce portal of some variety, and that's one of the reasons why they're winning. And so I would urge anybody in the B2B world to take a long, hard look at what they're offering today, if they offer self-service e-commerce, and say, well, maybe the reason we only have a 1% adoption because it's a crappy experience.
Hey, how many times you have heard we can't do that? If you are a business and talking to the IT, that becomes a all too common phrase, right? It's just impossible. We can't do it. It's going to take X number of days, or and when it's finally delivered, it's nowhere close to what the businesses or modern buyers are expecting. So, Hayward, Shopify Plus is a multi-tenant SaaS platform, right? How does that model free this B2B companies who have this legacy monolithic systems, outdated arcane systems, right? How can Shopify Plus can free them from, and let's say take a leap of faith to the modern world, right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to unpack there. So, one of them, and this slide sort of covers some of the, aspects around the different channels that Shopify, is both known for, but also provides that flexibility for merchants to expand and drive adoption of their commerce experience outside of just B2B, and that maybe can help justify the investment there as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But if we go to the next slide, you'll actually see we've talked about that sort of monolith versus where Shopify fits in. Rather than it being one sort of contained platform, throughout this whole presentation, we've talked about how Shopify has core functionality, but also the ability to extend the platform through integrations and apps and external systems and customization even within the first-party features. And that's really the core of where we found what we think is the sweet spot between having one sort of more fixed, monolithic product versus on the other end, a microservices architecture where it is more of a maintenance and maintainability question and requiring a larger development team to keep things up and running. We think our sort of SaaS approach provides a good combination, providing the flexibility that merchants and partners are wanting, while also providing the stability and sort of maintainability of a SaaS platform. And then if we look at the last sort of slide in this section, if you pull together the sort of what this actually provides, I think I mentioned it maybe once or twice, but our APIs are really the foundation of this extensibility, whether it be for ERP integrations or simply apps integrating with a store. These apps all use these APIs to talk to the platform in the same way. So from a developer perspective, it's easy to maintain. They're well documented, and it's a good experience for them to actually build on. We've talked about the custom data and being able to take this custom data structure and extend the platform to meet the merchant's requirements, whether it be for storing external data or customizing and configuring things like what information is related to a customer in Shopify. We talked about the functions and being able to sort of tailor things within Shopify, even without needing external integrations, as well as the checkout extensibility. So I think when you combine all of these pieces together, it shows that Shopify is, in many cases, especially in B2B, one of a larger puzzle of systems, and our flexibility and extensibility allows the merchant to be able to match that, whether it be today or integrations that they're looking to add in the future.
Thank you, Jason. All right, so let's jump for our last point, and we have only 5 minutes left, so we're gonna quickly do mounting technical depths and scalability bottlenecks, right? Technical debt is just an IT problem. It's a major financial drain and a barrier to a growth, right? You want to modernize it, but it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you money to maintain it, right? So it becomes very important to effectively and wisely evaluate your next platform, next investment that you're going to do, right? You don't want to end up in a situation where you just got yourself out of one hole and you just jumped into another one. So Jason, when you talk to leaders, how do you frame the total cost of ownership, or TCO, for example, of this older systems beyond just obvious licensing fees?
Yeah, look, I think this whole conversation about technical debt, it often overlooks the opportunity cost of being on a bespoke solution or a highly customized solution, or something that's purely designed for your existing ERP system. And that technical debt is this: if you as a business are responsible for every feature, every function, the entire roadmap, because effectively when you've got a bespoke solution in place, you then become a product manager. You then are managing a product. You are managing the platform. You are responsible for road mapping out the features and functionality that your customers need today and that you think your customers are going to need tomorrow. So you don't get the benefit of a globally developed solution that is being maintained and enhanced globally, and is also being, the roadmap is being fed into by many different businesses with many different requirements globally. And so you don't benefit from that whole entire global roadmap and that global investment into a global platform. You don't get that with a bespoke platform. So not only do you have the technical debt of maintenance, enhancement, scaling, infrastructure, not only do you have the technical debt of all of that with some of those bespoke systems, but the overhead of being responsible for the entire product development lifecycle, I think that is something that is massively overlooked. And that is a reason why when these businesses put into place a decade ago, the solution today and what you see online looks exactly like it did a decade ago, because it's too painful, it's too expensive, and it's too hard. They hardly have project managers usually inside the business. They oftentimes don't have a PMO inside the business. They oftentimes don't even have a marketing manager inside these B2B businesses, right? They might have a sales director or a RevOps director, but they oftentimes don't have a marketing person inside these businesses. So they have no one inside the business that is capable of road mapping out all the additional functionality that needs to be rolled out over time to meet the customer's needs. And I think that's a critical part of technical debt that is massively overlooked when you use either legacy systems or you create something bespoke from scratch.
So I guess it's the opportunity cost that really hurts, right? So Hayward, how does Shopify's cloud-based infrastructure ensures this B2B merchants can scale on demand without worrying about performance, and how does that contribute to lower TCO? And it just
Yeah, so looking at the TCO side of things, I think that goes back to what I was saying when it comes to the monolith versus SaaS versus microarchitecture. When the hosting of the sort of core e-commerce aspect of that is taken on by Shopify, and the merchant only has to worry about the external tools. There's a huge part of that. A lot of it also comes down to the maintainability of our front end experiences and the work that's been put into making sure that those are easy to maintain. And there's a whole bunch of small pieces that all add up to make it so that you don't need to keep an entire dev shop on hand just to keep the lights on. You can spend that resourcing making the site better in many ways. So that's a huge part of it, and these numbers sort of speak to that. In terms of the scalability and the other side of that, Shopify has spent more than a decade cutting our teeth on flash sales for the D2C market, and the high traffic Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales. So we are no stranger to high volume order processing, whether it be for single stores or across our platform. And the beauty of our SaaS infrastructure is that scaling and expanding and contracting as needed to match demand is done without the need for merchant interaction there. So merchants can again focus on what's important directly to running their business rather than keeping the lights on.
Right. I think as we just discussed the 6 pain points, that are not separate, isolated challenges. They are deeply interconnected. Poor customer experience is often a direct symptom of inflexible pricing rules and siloed backend systems, right? I mean, inefficient manual workflows are a result of rigid legacy platform that can't be automated or integrated properly. So we have covered a lot of ground today, and from the front-end experience to the back-end systems technology that powers it all, and how the Shopify can, is a uniquely tailored to address this B2B e-commerce experience that is built on top of the D2C experience they have done over the past few years. Now to thrive, B2B leaders need a platform, right? I mean that is an agile, scalable, and built for a modern buyer. So it's all about reducing the cost, increasing efficiency, and most importantly, delivering a super customer experience for your B2B buyers. So now for everyone who is listening, we want to help you on this journey. We are offering this bonus where we can do a personalized e-commerce audit of your existing systems. We can do a platform readiness checkout experience, pricing, flexibility experience. We have Shopify team, who's gonna help us to do e-commerce or audit and give a clear roadmap or path to success. Now, feel free to please reach out to our team, and our contact information is right there on the last slide. Now, I think we are right on the time, and we want to leave it open for a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please put that in the comments in the LinkedIn live event.
Yeah, I think speaking for myself, I don't want to speak for Hayward, but I'm happy to make sure and jump into the thread of questions or the thread of comments underneath the live event, and I'll revisit that over the next couple of days. So anybody that hasn't had a chance to ask their question today, I realize we're just about out of time here, but I'm very, very happy to keep an eye on that and answer questions over the next few days.
Thank you, Jason. We will again love to have your insight on, you bring in-depth industry experience, and your opinions, and very well valuable.
Yeah, Rahul, happy to help support you guys and make sure any questions that are unanswered get a good response. So yeah.
All right, we're just gonna wait maybe a couple of minutes and see if anyone has questions. Right. I think we don't have so far anything. Maybe we covered a lot of ground and gave a lot of inside information. But as usual, please reach out to us anytime. The team is ready to help you to any questions that you have. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Howard, for jumping on this webinar and sharing your expertise and knowledge and experience, and talk about the Shopify and all the capabilities that are built out of the box or what can be extended. And I would like to have just a final word from Jason, if you have anything you want to say.
No, thank you very much for the time. I see there was a couple of questions that have come through there. I think there was one from Alexia. So I'll jump into the comment section after the LinkedIn live completes there, and I'll answer those questions as best I can. Greenwoodconsulting.net. That's my website, or you can just catch up with me on LinkedIn. And I try to put out content there almost every single day about B2B e-commerce. So yeah, would love to have a chat. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Jason. Hayward, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, thanks for putting this together, and as I said, yeah, happy to help answer any outstanding questions that come up. But yeah, thanks for hosting this, Rahul.
All right, thank you, Hayward. Thank you for all the listeners who jumped on the LinkedIn Live from your busy day. And if you are from a North American market, enjoy your long weekend, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Thank you for joining the webinar once again. Bye.